This is not how I wanted to celebrate National Library Week. I'm so pissed they came for libraries. Merry meet, my fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads, a place where we talk about books and other bookish things. Libraries have always held a special place in my heart. Growing up, my local library was my solace from my chaotic family and demanding responsibilities. It's not where I found my love of books, but it is absolutely where I grew in my love of books. From angsty teen paperbacks to more adult fare in V.C. Andrews and Mary Higgins Clark. It was a place where I started my journey to the reader that I am today. I remember skimming titles, poring over book covers, eventually plucking a book or two off of the shelf to take home with me. It was so powerful. Of course, this was not before I sat down in the teen section of the library on a worn out beanbag chair and read a chapter or two of the books I wanted to take home. It was perfect. It was my safe space. I'm not the first person to find comfort in those sacred walls that housed what felt like all the books in the world. That is part of the magic of libraries. I refuse to let myself or anyone be the last person who gets to experience that feeling. Chapter 1, Shots Fired. On March 14th, 2025, our current presidential administration issued an executive order that will effectively dismantle 7 federal agencies to continue the reduction in elements of the federal bureaucracy that the president has determined are unnecessary. One of the agencies on that list is the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS for short. The IMLS was created by Congress in 1996 through the Museum and Library Services Act. It was a law that basically merged the Institute of Museum Services, established in 1976, with the Library Programs Office of the Department of Education. These two departments became the overarching agency that could more cohesively and strategically support American museums and libraries while also uplifting local communities through these cultural institutions. The federal financial support for this agency helped fund cultural and educational institutions through art, science, history museums, zoos, aquariums, botanical gardens, historic sites, and libraries. It wasn't just public libraries either. I'm talking about public, academic, school, and research libraries as well. There are an estimated 124,904 libraries across the United States. This agency accounts for only 0.0046% of the federal budget and is arguably one of the most efficient use of our tax dollars. The IMLS helps institutions like these operate effectively to better serve their communities and the country as a whole. The funding our taxes provide for libraries is seen through grants, research, and policy initiatives. For libraries, that might look like funding for technological support and upgrades, such as broadband connections and upgrades to their networks, hardware and software support, electronic catalogs of digitized newsprints and websites, virtual learning stations, AI-assisted research aids, and the complete digitization of rare books. For local communities, it funds programs that take place within these libraries, from early childhood reading initiatives to workshops that help people find and land jobs. Essential for those who want to work but do not have the personal means to navigate online job postings. We also can't forget the library services provided for the blind and print disabled. Or how about the services for people in prison and juvenile detention and psychiatric facilities? As an average everyday reader, you might not know or even care about those services and what they provide to others. What you you might care about is that IMLS also provides group purchasing programs for ebooks, audiobooks, and research databases. That means Libby, your Libby app. If you are a reader of ebooks and utilize your library to read ebooks through your Libby app or any other reading app, and you happen to live in a more rural area, you will likely begin to feel the effects of the dismantling of this agency far quicker than your city counterparts. I can't imagine it will end there though. If this continues, it will eventually affect everyone. If you are just hearing about this agency and what it provides to libraries and the communities they support, I would hope that a rage is beginning to course through you right now.
Flames on the side of my face.
It is not partisan or radical to want to keep something that is so obviously worth keeping, not just for readers, but for our country as a whole. It is infuriatingly unfortunate that our current administration doesn't think that this is the case, that libraries and museums are not worth supporting, because that executive order was meant to be the final execution for this agency, an elimination to the maximum extent consistent with applicable law to any kind of freely available independent research, science, and literary-based education. Chapter 2, Divide and Conquer. Following up on the March 14th executive order, on March 31st, DOGE did what it does and sent all the IMLS employees home. For now, they are only on a 90-day administrative leave. But who's to say how temporary this actually is, if it's temporary at all? What we do know is that all the IMLS emails were closed and project files dismantled, which does not bode well for anyone returning to their job, at least not the one that they used to know. As much as I am nervous as a reader and lover of everything this agency represents and funds, I cannot imagine the level of stress these IMLS employees feel while they wait for what happens next.
Sir, are you okay?
I'm a little messed up.
In addition to the administrative leave, any and all institutions that were waiting for funding were told that it was likely not going to happen. In an attempt to combat this, the board had sent a letter to the agency's new acting director, Deputy Secretary of Labor Keith E. Sonderling, where they outlined exactly what the essential functions of the agency are and made it perfectly clear that any cuts made to the IMLS would have a direct and long-lasting negative impact on public museums and libraries nationwide. They also tried to make it clear to him that an executive order on its own would not be enough to change the essential functions or services provided by the IMLS, as has been the case with most of the executive orders being churned out by the White House. They would need Congress to approve it. Sonderling, unsurprisingly, didn't respond to this letter, essentially ghosting the agency he is meant to be running.
Do not walk away from me. Do not. You are not. You're doing it. Nick.
Yeah,
You did it.
The board sent a follow-up letter to Sonderling after the wake of the gutting of staff on the 31st. This one demanding answers to their previous questions, as well as asking for the truth about what exactly has happened and what will happen with the agency. Sonderling has yet to respond to this second letter, and I don't plan on holding my breath that he ever will. We know that the IMLS isn't the only agency being slashed and burned by the new administration. The goal being to leave essential agency personnel confused and in the dark so that they can provide whatever messaging that appears the most advantageous for them when asked for clarification. It seems regardless what this administrative leave actually means, it looks like the staff of the IMLS has been effectively fired from their roles. Even if some do manage to come back, the results of permanently firing then rehiring under new guidelines will directly impact public library and museum services across the country. And I don't think I need to reiterate what a devastating blow that will be. Chapter 3, What Libraries Represent. It is genuinely hard to place a number on what libraries are worth to this country. Public libraries serve as a beacon within their communities, providing free services and programs that assist and uplift those who need it the most. Of course, they also provide books, either physically in the library or digitally through the library's portal or book loan app, such as Libby. And not for nothing, despite some recent bad press by a certain subsect of humans, public libraries are popular and have only increased in popularity through the decades. Millennials and Gen Z are the most active in their love and support of public libraries, producing higher rates of attendance when compared to other generations. Great news! Younger generations of people are reading books, buying books, and visiting libraries. Obligatory acknowledgement of Book Talk for its contributions to this increase, though it should be noted that the consistent increase of library popularity was a thing long before TikTok was. I'm not the biggest advocate for that side of the internet, but it would be ridiculous to not acknowledge it has brought in many new readers to the bookish community, and that is always a win, and I will always celebrate that. I can also say that as a millennial book nerd, I lived at my local library from middle school all throughout high school. It was my haven. It is where I discovered and cultivated my love of books. I know what these institutions mean to readers of all ages and other members of the community who frequent libraries for their range of free services. The fact that what the IMLS funds is so popular makes you really stop to wonder why it is being defunded and what libraries will look like if that dark path ever fully comes to fruition. Chapter 4, Worst Case Scenarios. Even with a positive outlook, it is not an overstatement to say that libraries are under attack. This is just the first step in what is likely to come. The fact is, what many don't realize is that the health of the nation's libraries can easily result in the spread of nationalistic propaganda and create a potential national security issue. I would normally say that it doesn't take a genius to figure out what it means when a government takes control over the institutions that control and distribute the nation's educational materials. The similarities to the Yahtzee ideology are uncanny and are literally screaming at us in the face right now. This is literally how Titchler started his regime, and the fact that this administration isn't even doing a good job at covering up their intentions is wild to me. It is an honor to be appointed by President Trump to lead this most important organization in its mission to advance, support, and empower America's museums and libraries, which stand as cornerstones of learning and culture in our society. I am committed to steering this organization in lockstep with this administration to enhance efficiency and foster innovation. We will revitalize IMLS and restore focus on patriotism, ensuring we preserve our country's core values, promote American exceptionalism, and cultivate love of country in future generations. That says a whole lot of nothing with a whole lot of something. On April 3rd, the IMLS Instagram page posted this. This is propaganda, pure and simple. The caption says, "The era of using your taxpayer dollars to fund DEI grants is over." It is not an overreaction to say that this is fucking terrifying. I would bet dollars to donuts that whichever brain-dead Doge employee posted this graphic has no idea what DEI actually stands for. At the very least, they absolutely do not know what the E stands for. It's equity, by the way. Like the ability for libraries to provide the same internet services to Grandpa Bill, who lives in rural America, as it would to his counterpart in a major metropolis. That is providing equitable services. That falls under DEI. At this point, they are gleefully taking our hands and walking us down the yellow brick road to the fascist city. Speaking of fighting fascists, let's discuss the national security issue with defunding libraries that no one seems to be talking about. We know that this is a thing that can happen because it has happened before, during World War II. The story of how defunding our nation's libraries almost lost us World War II is worth retelling again and again, especially now. This is particularly important with how we are likely to begin cutting back on acquisitions and the digitization of materials while simultaneously throwing out the archives, the original hard copies. Archives that were likely collected by spies who were sent to acquire them overseas during World War II. America was pulled into World War II on December 7th, 1941, with the attack on Pearl Harbor. Until that moment, we had treated the situation as none of our business. Out of sight, out of mind kind of situation, which is its own problem. The thing is, America had a problem and wasn't prepared to fix it. That was the lack of a meaningful intelligence infrastructure. The last agency that existed that could handle the capacity to decrypt and read foreign diplomatic messages was shuttered in 1929 at the order of Henry Stimson, Secretary of State, claiming that gentlemen do not read each other's mail. With everything happening now in regards to national security, that is such a load of bullshit. So, to counteract this obvious mistake, President Roosevelt appointed a Wall Street lawyer, William Donovan, to start a new intelligence agency in July 1941, prior to America entering the war. Because Roosevelt knew dismantling our means to gather and collect information was a dumb idea. Even with Donovan working on building this agency, he knew he couldn't compete with the decades and even centuries of intelligence experience that other spy agencies had. So he built something new, a branch called Research and Analysis, R&A, where analysts trained among library stacks and read everything they could, from novels to newspapers to flyers to trash. They turned all of that into intelligence insights. Donovan's legal training had taught him the importance and value of turning to literature, so he would whisk away librarians and professors to be a part of what could only be described as a global spy thriller meets The Librarian. This new agency used books and documents to answer all kinds of crucial questions, such as, what does the shore we plan to invade look like? After the military captures the nearest town, where can they find equipment, munitions, pharmacies, and telegraph offices? Even with these insights, this agency quickly learned that libraries weren't up to the task to provide even the most basic of information that was needed in a crisis, such as the one we were about to enter. So, the R&A sent agents to hunt through libraries to get as much information as they could. The New York Public Library became a vital outpost, just to give one example. There was still an information deficit, though, a deficit that our government caused by defunding the libraries in the first place. This was also fixed by Donovan's agency, who ended up sending librarians and professors as spies overseas to hunt down maps and other important documents. Thousands upon thousands of documents were sent back each week to university libraries and archives in New York and across the country. Gaining these documents, in particular resistance literature, German newspapers, maps, and the like, is what allowed us to gain ground and ultimately win the war. After World War II, politicians resolved to never allow our libraries to become so dramatically deficient. We started investing in public and university libraries by approving ambitious programs to expand them. We knew this was important because we understood it to be an act of American patriotism for the vision of America we wanted to be. We had to learn the hard way, and now it appears that all those lessons have been forgotten. We are headed right back into a situation where our libraries will be utterly deficient in a time of crisis.
You want weapons? We're in a library. Books! Best weapons in the world. This room's the greatest arsenal we could have. Arm yourself.
Even if we were to digitize everything, which also requires funding, we would need to keep any and all archives because with how vulnerable technology can be, it won't ever make them obsolete. Based on this scenario, it should be easy to understand that libraries and museums are a small investment to make that pays back in huge gains. Namely, to ensure we don't repeat the mistakes of the last World War, since it is looking like we might be on the brink of another. Defunding libraries back then was a mistake. Doing it again would be an even bigger mistake. The good news, because don't worry, there is good news. There are things we can do as individuals and within our communities that can help local libraries to fight back. Chapter 5, what can we do? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It feels hopeless. I know it feels hopeless, but we need to push past those feelings and continue fighting. I know everyone is reaching burnout if they haven't already. It's hard when so much is going on. Even with this story, it's hard to even make a video about it because so much information is happening every day. Updates are happening every day about this just one situation. Forget about everything else that's happening. Even though the world is on fire, there are still things we can do to slowly try and put it out. This is a marathon, not a sprint. If you want to speak up in support of the IMLS and libraries, there are a few things you can do. The first is super easy. Sign the petition at every library to add your name to the mission of stopping the executive order that will effectively end the IMLS. Then share it far and wide with friends, with family, with strangers. It may not seem like much, but it's a start. I know it might feel cliche, but you should write a letter to your senators and representatives in Congress. They haven't been doing much, so the least we can do is give them something to chew on, and hopefully they finally start doing something. The letter should be short, sweet, and to the point. Say you are a resident of their district and demand that they speak up to defend the budget for IMLS. Be sure to include how you value libraries as well as their importance to your community. You can even add how the return on investment on libraries far outweighs the pennies on the dollar that will be saved from cutting funding. Feel free to use data from every library, which I'll provide the link to below. The next step is to actively call your senators and representatives. They'll say they're busy. You'll likely be sent to a voicemail. Their voicemail will likely be full. Keep calling. The important thing is to get your name on the record as being against the IMLS cuts. This should be done in addition to writing a letter. If making calls gives you anxiety, like it does for me, you can use a tool like 5 Calls that will create a script for you to read when you reach a person or a voicemail. This is also the time to reach out to your state representatives to emphasize the importance of your state's public libraries. Though they don't have the same power to impact what will happen with the IMLS, they can advocate for stronger protections surrounding libraries and library workers, as well as stronger funding methods for their state institutions that will face these potential cuts. After you've done all of that, show up to your next public library meeting, either in person at a board meeting, or you can make your presence known through email or letter. Tell them how much the library means to you. This doesn't need to be eloquent or flawless. Simply attach your name to supporting your local libraries by explaining how you use their resources and how much they mean to you as a person and as a taxpayer. The Las Vegas Library District, which is my local library district, isn't going to be affected as quickly as, say, other library districts. However, this hasn't stopped me from looking up when they hold their board meetings. I've been monitoring what topics are being covered so I know when to arrive, when it will be the most needed. The final step is getting the word out as much as possible. Explain to everyone you know just what is at stake here. Even if you haven't built a habit of speaking up for these public institutions over the last several years, despite the rampant red flags and obvious warnings that have not stopped building, don't be too hard on yourself. It's not too late to begin now. The easiest way is to share every library's primer and petition. It is a great resource for folks who may be unaware of what's been going on and only want the most important information. Remember to bring up the museums too. They're going to be equally as affected by this as libraries. If you are a justly angry librarian, make infographics to share on social media, write blogs, speak with local news media, describe what is happening, explain how this will affect libraries for those on the front lines and for those who need library services in order to function on a daily basis. Spread good and correct information. It may not seem like much, but it's a start, and it is better than doing nothing. Pushback has already begun, and it is making news. The ALA and over 21 states are suing the current administration to protect their libraries and museums, which is outstanding. They shouldn't have to do that, but I am so happy that they are. Apathy is the real danger in times like these, and that is what the other side is counting on. We cannot and will not give them the satisfaction. Chapter 6. It's scary. Get angry. There are plenty of people who will say that I and others who feel the same as I do are overreacting. And to that I say, how many times do we need to sound the alarm before certain people take this seriously? I would hope the attack on our nation's libraries and museums, basically the baseline of our culture, education, and history, would be enough to get people's asses in gear. But many are choosing to not see the danger. They're more worried about saving a few extra pennies on their taxes instead of providing a valuable service that helps foster growth and improvement in communities. This is what living in a society entails. They refuse to actively be a part of society if that means contributing to it in any real manner. We have failed as a country because we have lost our sense of collectiveness, one of the strongest traits that makes us human. A specific demographic of us have lost all sense of empathy for our fellow humans. We are on a path of self-destruction. We must change course if we want any reasonable hope of surviving. I and many others refuse to be scared anymore. We are angry. The only way to combat this is to fight against it. This administration won't last forever, and we will be here long after it is gone. Our descendants will be here, and we need to ensure their future is a bright one.
Your library card, please.
I don't have one.
You do now. Consider this your passport to the wonderful and quite unpredictable world of books.
Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. This was definitely one of the heavier topics, but I wanted to cover it because with so much going on in the world, I was focusing on my efforts and taking in certain news broadcasts, and I was focusing on the bookish community and what is happening to books and literature, and book bans have been happening for a very long time, and I have been monitoring those situations as well. Libraries just hit differently for me. They mean so much to me. When this executive order was signed, I knew I had to say something. That is what this video is for. I need to make my thoughts on this known. I'm just going to reiterate, I'm pissed and I want to save libraries. If you are a reader, you should want to save them too. They are a vital part of our country and they deserve the funding, the very minuscule funding that they receive from our government. Let me know what libraries mean to you. I would love to hear other people's stories about growing up in a library or maybe discovering your public library for the first time. I know for me, it was a truly magical experience. I fondly remember the public library that I grew up next to. Try not to get too burnt out on everything. Remember, it's important to also fight. If you enjoy my videos and would like to support my channel, the best way to do that right now is to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a little comment below letting me know you are here. It really is a big help, and I greatly appreciate it. Until our next chapter together, merry part and blessed be.